Woodworking machines require periodic maintenance to keep them running smoothly and cutting accurately. We have a great video about tuning up your table saw. I'll link to that below this video, but today I want to offer some tips for tuning up your jointer or your thickness planer, including how to solve some common problems, such as slipping feed rollers and end snipe. Of course, you should always unplug your machines before you do any maintenance. Don't rely upon the switch to keep your fingers on the ends of your arms. Now let's start with the planer. Every year or so, I like to examine the belts and the chains and the gears. If the belt's worn or loose, it's a good idea to replace it before it starts slipping and causing bigger problems. I like to lubricate the gears and chain with white lithium grease because unlike WD-40 and other oil lubricants, it won't attract dust that will quickly gunk everything up again. If your feed rollers are slipping during use, it's most likely due to resin buildup. If you plane a lot of pine, this may be a regular maintenance issue for you, but it will build up over time with any type of wood. It's not difficult to fix. Wipe the rollers with a solvent such as naphtha or mineral spirits or white spirits. If you don't have access to such solvents, a cleaner like Simple Green may work. Just avoid anything that is harmful to rubber or to plastic. Do not turn the machine on and let the rollers spin as you hold a cloth against them. If that cloth gets sucked into the machine, you're going to have a mess. If your hand gets sucked in, you're going to have a bigger mess. Wipe the portion of the roller that you can access with it off and unplugged. Then remove your hand, turn the machine on for a second to allow the rollers to rotate to a new position. Then repeat the wipe, rotate, wipe process a few times and you should have covered the entire surface of both rollers. Use the same cleaner to remove any gunk from the tables. Then apply a thin coat of paste wax. Don't get any wax on the rollers, just on the tables. Once that dries, buff it smooth and you'll be shocked at how much better the wood will feed through the machine. Other than slipping rollers, one of the biggest complaints some people have with their planer is the snipe at the end of a workpiece. This is caused by the end of the board tipping upwards into the cutter head near the end of the process as it comes off one of the two rollers. To avoid this, you have to support the board and keep it flat as it travels through the machine and as it exits the cut. The first step would be to ensure that the infeed and outfeed tables are even. If this doesn't solve the problem, you may need more outfeed support, especially for longer boards. Roller stands may help. Another solution may be to build an extended infeed-outfeed table that slides inside your machine and lays on top of its original tables. This will provide long, flat, even support to your longest work pieces. Melamine is a good choice for this because it's slippery. MDF or plywood may work as well if you wax it. Changing the knives on many benchtop planers is a simple matter because they have indexing pins to make alignment fast. The downside of those pins are they don't allow for much sharpening because you can't advance the knives forward as you sharpen them and make them narrower. There are jigs for sharpening your own planer knives, and it's definitely worth trying out. But I'll link below this video to a source for some relatively inexpensive replacement knives, even for old and out of production machines. I think it's a good idea to get an extra set to keep on hand because it really stinks when you have to stop a project right in the middle and wait a week or two to find and order new sharp knives for your jointer or planer. Speaking of jointer, let's talk about that. Jointer knives rarely have indexing pins. This means you can sharpen them more than you can planer knives. But it also means they can be a pain to reinstall and realign. They must be flush with the upper surface of the outfeed table at the apex of their rotation. Magnetic jigs help with the alignment, but the knives have a nasty habit of shifting at the last moment as you tighten your set screws. I wish there was a trick to make this easy, but some machines are just a pain. As I said, the outfeed table must be even with the knives at their apex. If you're getting snipe on the end of your boards and you haven't messed with your knives, the cause is most likely a misaligned outfeed table. Many jointers have mechanisms for raising and lowering the outfeed side. Others may require shims. After the outfeed table is set, raise the infeed table to the same level and ensure that the two are coplanar from one end of the machine to the other. If one or both of the tables are sagging at the ends, you must shim them to bring everything back to the same plane. While you should check that your fence is square as part of this maintenance process, I find that fences must be checked every time you use a machine because they tend to move out of alignment over time. Another thing you should keep an eye on is the guard. If you have this style, be sure the spring is adjusted so it will swing back in place on its own. People have lost hands in the jointer because the guard was not in place. Finally, wax all the cast iron surfaces and buff them till they're slick as snot. The final and ultimate upgrade for a jointer or a planer is a helical head with carbide cutters. Helical heads improve dust collection, they reduce machine noise, and they leave incredibly smooth surfaces on even the toughest grain. It is far easier to rotate the cutters on a helical head than it is to change conventional knives on many machines. And each cutter has 4 carbide edges, which last many times longer than high-speed steel. Helical heads are expensive upgrades, but what you save in replacement knives over a couple years may greatly offset the expense if you're a shop that uses your jointer or planer reasonably often. Plus, they are a pleasure to use. I recommend LuxCut helical heads, which is not a sponsor. I just think they're more robust than other brands, and they include features that make them superior in my opinion. I'll link to a video below about why I switched to LuxCut for my machines, and to a website that has the best prices and surfaces for helical jointer and planer heads. The website is a sponsor, but they carry both Shelix and LuxCut, as well as high-speed steel knives if you prefer those. I hope these resources help keep your machines working smoothly for many years to come. See you next time. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.